I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to an episode of Monuments Monday. And today, I'd like to talk about John Cleveland Robinson's division along Oak Ridge. And of course, this is the 2nd Division of the 1st Army Corps. The statue that was placed here was dedicated at the same time as the statue to Abner Doubleday. And it was in 1917 that these were placed. And pretty nice monuments by the state of New York. Robinson was always, when I was young and reading about it, one of my favorite generals. According to a man in the 16th Maine, Robinson was the hairiest man in the Northern Army. He had hair growing out of places that you shouldn't have hair growing out of, according to this guy. But Robinson commanded the division here at Gettysburg, and he received the Medal of Honor at the Battle of Laurel Hill around Spotsylvania on May 8th, 1864. And he died in 1897, and he had 2 brigades at Gettysburg, Henry Baxter's brigade and Gabriel Paul's brigade. During the battle, Robinson had about 3,000 men in his brigade, and he lost about 1,700 of them killed or wounded or captured. I will tell you a little bit about that brigade in a second, but the 16th Maine had 164 men captured in a retreat from this ridge, and the 94th New York lost 175 of their men captured. In total, Gabriel Paul's brigade of Robinson's division had about 40% of their brigade captured on the retreat back through the town. So it was an extremely high loss. You know, when we talk about monuments on the battlefield, the monuments are generally placed to mark the location of where that unit stood during the fighting, as best, we can place by the recollections of the men that were involved in the battle, or the best they can be placed. Now, there are some variables, though. In some instances, the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association would purchase a strip of land and put the monuments on the strip of land they purchased, or they would place them along an existing road. This area that we're standing in, Oak Ridge, looked much different at the time of the battle than it appeared when the veterans started to return and place monuments in the 1880s and 90s. And basically, at the time of the Civil War, we were on the eastern edge of John Forney's field, near a clump of trees and a couple indistinct stone walls. And then in the 1870s, a house was built over here by Robert Sheeds, and a lane was placed in here to connect to that house. And in the 1880s, William Gwynn built a house just up over there in the middle of the field we refer to as Iverson's Pits. And so these 2 houses and this lane was placed here, and stone walls were placed that were not at the same locations as they were at the time of the battle. As a matter of fact, this stone wall I'm standing at was a War Department stone wall that was built, I believe, around 1904, and you can see it's recently been rebuilt by the National Park Service. But at the time of the battle, all accounts are that this wall was down across this orchard. So when the people were coming back to place their monuments, they were met by all these new obstructions. And so, maybe the veterans didn't have entire confidence as to the location they were placing these monuments. Now, one thing they did have was John Batchelder, who, early on is sort of the self-appointed historian of the Battle of Gettysburg. He studied the battle in great detail, and he drew a map of the different locations of the regiments during the fighting. And so they used his early work to determine the positions of some of these troops. Now, I'll show a picture here of John Batchelder's isometrical map, which was actually drawn in late 1863 and printed in 1864. And when you look at that map, and you can compare it to where the monuments are today, it's pretty much the same. They show the locations of the units, the same place where the monuments are located. And as people wrote articles about the battle and then started to print books about the battle, they generally had the units positioned as the monuments are positioned. I was at an excellent lecture years ago with General Harold Nelson, who wrote the War College Guide to the Gettysburg Battlefield, excellent book. And he mentioned that it was easy to understand Oak Ridge because the monuments were right where the units were. And, that's not exactly true. What we learn as time goes by here is that from reading the accounts of the soldiers, the northern units are not at the locations of where the monuments are today. And some of that has to do with the changing of the landscape, and some of it has to do with just some confusion overall about this battle. But just a simplified explanation, General John Cleveland Robinson commanded this division of 2 brigades. They arrived afternoon on the Gettysburg battlefield. They built a barricade at the Lutheran Seminary, which would be used by other troops later in the day, and then they were sent out in this location because Confederate General Robert Rhodes had arrived on Oak Ridge near the Eternal Peace Light Memorial. Baxter's brigade was sent out here first, piecemeal. Baxter's brigade ended up fighting against Iverson and O'Neill's brigade. Gabriel Paul's brigade was then sent to his assistance. Baxter's brigade was pulled out of line, sent to another location, and Paul's brigade occupied near the same location that Baxter's brigade had been positioned. And so here today, when you come along this ridge and down along the hillside, the units of monuments for Paul's brigade and Baxter's brigade are mixed together near where they were during the battle. But I want to show this illustration that is in a map of the Union troops here on the battlefield, and you can see the units lined up almost exactly as the monuments are here today. This is actually from Gettysburg magazine. I think it's issue number 3. I wanted to pick a map that, is more modern, but gives a general idea what we're talking about. And Iverson's brigade attacked this position. And on the map, you can see where the units are. One thing we know about this battle is that the 88th Pennsylvania captured the flag of the 23rd North Carolina, and the 97th New York captured the flag of the 20th North Carolina in a charge. And it's clear it's the same charge. And you see that these 2 units would have to cross with other regiments in between them to get to the position of these flags. It is impossible. It did not happen that way. And all you had to do is read the accounts of the 12th Massachusetts and the 97th New York and see that those 2 units are side by side in the charge. So generally, we looked at the location of the monuments on the battlefield to determine where the units fought, but that is not always the case. And sometimes monuments are placed by the veterans who are unclear about their position, or they're being told by other people that they have to put them up where they did. One last thing, you might know that John Batchelder is a little difficult to work with. I say that because I've read a massive amount of his writings, and when he thinks that he's right, he doesn't relent. And eventually he was made the superintendent of markers and monuments and tablets on the Gettysburg battlefield, so he had the final word. And some of these positions are due to his work and not necessarily the veterans who are putting them up. Oh, and remember, on July 5th, we have a special event here in Gettysburg. The Confederates take the Shriver House. Check our website out for times and prices. Well, if you like the content we continue to put on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe.